Welcome to Research Matters with Unda and Kuda, an online show that is all about communicating the research taking place at NUST in efforts to promote the university's research agenda and the impact thereof.
Another brilliant morning, another great way to start off the day. It is Research Matters with Unda and Kuda right here on NUST FM, where we are reinventing sound. Again, we're glad to be back. I mean, the last time we spoke was when we were doing the Literates edition of Research Matters. It's been a while, but Unda and Kuda are right back, and we have an amazing guest this morning that will take us through her journey.
Thank you so much for having me. Can I say having me if I'm
no,
one of the hosts?
Every day, you know.
No, great. Thank you so much. And it's always so exciting to be in studio. And as you rightfully said, a couple of weeks ago, we were in Literates. A lot was happening there. New campus, green hydrogen, and quite a roller coaster ride, but it was brilliant. And now it's great to be back in studio. Today we have Ndeshipanda Iita with us. She is from the Faculty of Engineering and the Built Environment, and she's a Staff Development Fellow. She's going to tell us all about it. But Ndeshi, welcome to our studio. We just want to take you back a little bit. What were you like as a child? If your mom is listening, can you tell the real version?
I hope, yeah. She's not going to be like, I don't remember that version.
Good morning, everyone. It's been... I don't think anyone has ever asked me that question before. What were you like as a child? I was a tattletale. I think that I remember very well. I really liked getting attention from the older people, from the adults, from my dad and mom. So the best way to do that is to be the tattletale, because then you get to spend a lot of time with them.
Were you the last one? Because
no,
normally
that's
the last one tendency.
Oh, wow.
Well, I was the first, but for a big chunk of my childhood, I was the youngest in the household because I lived with a lot of my cousins.
Oh, I
so
see.
I had both the experience of being the oldest kid in the house all the time and also being the youngest. I must say being the youngest is really nice.
Yep. I can attest.
Were you quiet? Were you grounded? Were you... What do you think? What do you remember?
Never quiet. I mean, to be a tattletale, you must love to talk.
It's a skill on its own.
So I love to talk. I hardly kept quiet. I did some sports. I was very slow. I was made fun of for how I ran because I was so slow. I would run, but like I'd leave my legs behind, and like my torso is like leaning forward.
I can visualize that.
So, but I always put in a lot of effort. I always did my best. School was okay. I wasn't particularly an A student, but I'd say I was a comfortable B student. So school was okay. I never had any issues when my report card came out. I had a positive childhood with positive relationships with the adults around me. That was quite nice. Yeah,
that sounds so wholesome. Really.
Yeah.
Did you have any siblings later on, or?
Yeah, so I have a brother and a sister. My sister is 5 years younger. My brother is 3 years younger.
Okay.
But for the beginning of our journey, we didn't live together. So when we did, I mean, it was fun. I mean, a lot of fighting.
Yeah.
I was heavy, so my go-to was to just sit on them, and then they can't move because I'm very lazy. I don't want to fight them.
Don't you wish you could do that as an adult? Some people
I
say no.
Yeah,
maybe
like,
not.
I'll just sit on my brother for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then he'll stop. He'll realize that he'll lose momentum.
Yeah.
And then he's done. And then he'll leave me alone. And then we'll go our separate ways. And then we'll do it again tomorrow.
I mean, you can get away with it as a child, but as an adult, the consequences are not so cute. But let's take a look at your role as a Staff Development Fellow.
Okay.
What does that really entail? What does it mean when you're just, speaking to the layman?
Okay. So from my understanding of the Staff Development Fellow is that NUST came to a point where we've now moved from being... I joined NUST when it was a polytech.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah, I started here first year, 2013, when NUST was a polytech. I did my undergraduate studies here, so that's a bachelor's in architecture and a bachelor honors in architecture. And then I left for 2 years to go do my master's. I had left at the time because the NUST program was very young at the time. It was its first year running. And I just thought that I needed... when you're in a faculty for 4 years.
Like, let me branch out.
Yeah, because you've had all the conversations with your lecturers and you've had them all teach you, and you're just thinking it's time for something new. So I went to University of Johannesburg. It was also actually it wasn't as different in experience in the academic space, but it was very different to live in a big city, fast-paced. Traffic really matters.
Not what we talk about here.
No.
We've got 3-4 cars in front of us, and you're like,
I'm stuck in traffic.
No,
girl.
it's so serious. In the time that I was there, I've witnessed road rage twice. Like someone coming out of the car in the typical video, where they have a gun and a little lady's there and she cut him off, things like that. So I go to Johannesburg, do my master's, and then I come back and I'm looking for work.
Yeah.
And I looked for work for a while, and then I thought to myself, perhaps I should just go back to school and study. I wasn't that bad at it. And then that's sort of how I stumbled upon the Staff Development Fellowship application at NUST. I applied for it. It left my mind. And 6 months later, I got an email from the HR department that they would consider me and they'll have an interview. I had an interview, and in the interview, I guess this is where I come with your answer on what the Staff Development Fellow is. So NUST got to a point where we've now become a university, but we don't have that many academics, especially not local academics. And they thought that perhaps they should groom their academics at home as well. So as opposed to just always putting out ads and looking for their academics, the PhD holders, masters holders, and honors holders, well, not honors, just masters and PhD, when they're looking for them in the world, perhaps there's some value in taking on some of the people they've trained and grooming those into those positions or grooming those into those qualifications so that they've sort of participated in building the capacity. And that's sort of, I believe, how the Staff Development Fellowship was born in most faculties. In our faculty, or specifically in the architectural department, natural sciences, it was that we had a shortage of PhD staff. So the school was desperate. It's been about 5 years just putting out applications for PhDs.
So that's actually quite a good strategy as well, to say beyond putting out applications, but also what are we doing homegrown talent, if I can put it that way. Which now actually leads me to my next question, talking about that capacitating our own, so to put it. Any prospects of a PhD? Are you doing your PhD studies? I know that's a lot of pressure, but that's the question that always pops up in the academic space, right? Take your time.
No pressure.
I'm quite prepared for that question.
Okay, great. I like.
Okay, so the requirement for the job is actually to pursue the studies within about 2 years of your appointment at NUST. So I am registered and I'm towards the end where I am submitting. And it's very scary because the PhD, from my experience, is one of those where you draw the map and you go on the travel. Literally, you draw up the map and you go on the hunt or the travel, and it's so scary to feel like you're competent enough, or to feel like your map is competent enough to take you where you said you're going.
You want to change the map, you want to redraw it, you want to
and you choose the destination. Every other space in school, except for the masters, where you sort of do that mini thesis, is you get an assignment and you do the assignment.
Yes.
Right?
Now this time
you map out the roadmap, and then you decide what the destination is going to be, and then you get there, and then you sort of reflect and say, did I get there?
So what is your thesis about? If you can just tell us a little bit about that, because after all, this is Research Matters, right? So we want to know, just from the research perspective of things, what problem are you trying to solve?
So when I got the appointment and it was time to start looking for what I'm interested in, at the time I had done my master's based in Uganda on the informal settlement there, and it was looking at informal commerce, the way money moved in the informal settlement in terms of sort of mapping the spatial movement of money within the informal settlement. So in Uganda, they're very they've got this. It's a very hilly. It's hills and valleys. It's similar to here, but they've got a lot of rain. So what happens is where there's a valley, there's sort of a riverbed. And imagine a city with like 10 times the number of riverbeds we have here because it rains so much there. So their living spaces or their informal settlements it's sort of the least fortunate at the bottom of the valley and the most fortunate at the top of the valley. And when we were on site for 2 weeks, I picked up, there was sort of a way that the money moved in the space depending on where you lived. Did you live at the bottom of the hill? Did you live at the top of the hill? So I got very interested in money matters or economic activities happening in the informal space. So when I came home and I was starting to working on my proposal, I was thinking about the informal traders we have in the city and how we have not yet devised a sustainable strategy on how to incorporate them into the city from the design perspective. So when you do a building, there are all these regulations you have to meet, especially whatever township you're designing a building in, there are all these regulations you're trying to meet based on the town planning scheme and all of that.
Yeah.
And there's not really a strategy devised to either incorporate or maybe even exclude traders. There's sort of just nothing done. So I was just, I am just looking at, the perceptions around informal traders held by us, the consumers or the general people on the street, the city officials themselves, the people that make these policies. And then I'm also looking at the spatial how would I term this? I'm looking at sort of the spatial impact on the space, but particularly focusing on the CBD, because I mean it's a very big sample to look at if I was to look at the whole city. But yeah, that's what I'm interested in.
So besides that, is there any other project where you, for instance, have partners that are paying or funding rather, for you to get these projects out that have impact, real ground impact? Yeah.
If I may, even your work with students, just tell us some projects you're involved in now.
Okay, there was this quite exciting one during COVID. The informal traders were on the spotlight because going home for them was quite devastating because they lived on the day-to-day income that came in from trading. So you found a lot of them breaking the protocols and trying to be out on the streets just to get some income going. And during that time, a lot of attention was all of a sudden zoomed in on the sanitation around these spaces because now all of a sudden you have to sit a specific amount of distance apart from each other. You have to wash your hand 10 times. You have to wear a mask and all of these. So there was this project called the City of Windhoek Sanitation Project where we were with some students designing some prototype toilets and shade spaces and storage facilities with some shipping containers supplied by Transnamib at the time. That was really, really fun. But after COVID died off, the project just got stuck in that phase. But that was some fun stuff. With students, I primarily work with second year students. So on top of the requirement to upgrade your education, there's also a requirement for a 40% teaching load. So the biggest teaching load that we have at the Department of Architecture is the studio space. So we do a lot of studio teaching, and I participate in the first year studios. I used to participate a little bit in the master's studio, but there's now a directive that has pushed us all without PhDs yet out of the master's space.
Putting the pressure,
the pressure is on. So
what does that mean, though? Sorry to interject there. What does that mean, studio, when you talk about studios?
So architecture and many design courses, you're talking about industrial design, the guys that make the cars. When you come to the kind of education that has to do with sort of creating and inventing, We teach it in a studio base. So we've got, imagine a big auditorium with a bunch of tables as opposed to chairs. Flat auditorium, a lot of tables as opposed to chairs, and 20 students in there designing a solution to a problem you've given them. So let's say you say, design, here's a piece of land, and you choose a piece of land in the city that has actual climatic conditions, and you tell the students everyone should design a prototype of a student hostel accommodating X number of students for X budget. And they start working on that. And the process to going from blank piece of paper to there's a building with all its drawings, so I guess in layman sort of all its faces, it takes some time, and everyone has a different process. So there are sort of the guideline processes that we use to sort of guide students through the process, but every student comes differently. Some students come and they start with what the building would look like, and then they start to figure out how does it function, how does it perform in terms of solar gain. Another building, a student will start with, I just want to plan it out. When I arrive to this building, I want a foyer. When I get off the foyer, I'd love a public space. So studio is a space where we spend about 15 minutes to 20 minutes per student 2 times a week going through their project and just making sure that they're covering all their bases as they develop this project. It's also marked very differently. It's not exam-based, it is presentation-based. So once they're not only learning how to fix the problem, but they're also learning how to sell the problem. Because again, that's what we do in design, we sell. So they're learning how to communicate their ideas very clearly in a very short amount of space to a potential client. So that's what we do in the studio.
Okay, maybe I would like to, I'm so fascinated with just the one-on-one, the process it takes to see all of this that we see. Maybe I can take you back as well. You and another student you won the coveted Des Becker Award, and you put NUST on the map. What was that all about? And I'm sure you were excited.
Just a throwback, hey?
That's a heavy throwback.
I remember, but it happened so long ago that it's a reality, but it's like at some point you were 5, right?
Yes.
But I would flex all the time.
I would.
I am Iita and I won this award.
Okay, so in 2016, when I was doing my honors here, South Africa has South Africa has had their architecture schools for a very long time. Ours is very young. We've only had it since 2010. So they have this award. They have an award for undergraduate, which is first year to 4th year. They have another called the Des Becker at the time. It has been renamed. I cannot recall the name right now. The other award they had is the Coral Brick for masters. So for the undergraduate one, 2016, they decided to open it up to the region. So they invited Namibia, they invited Zambia, Zimbabwe. They tried to just invite it out to SADC.
Yes.
And we responded to the call. And at the university, they sort of ran the competition within the school, and then the 3 teams that came out at the top got to go to South Africa. And I remember putting a lot of effort in that project because I had never left the country. And I just wanted to leave.
Exactly, like I just want to see what's out there.
I just wanted to have a reason to get a passport. So
and
a stamp.
One.
So they put out the ad at school. That day I went to get my passport, and I didn't leave studio until we had like an idea that felt like this could win, because I was just like, I have to go to South Africa. Like there's no way we're going to win this.
Many options.
There's no way we're going to win,
but I just need to go.
I just need to go. And I was just so happy being in South Africa. And I remember you all go to South Africa, they put all the students in one space from all the universities, and they put up the work sort of exhibition style. And you see all the amazing work from all the other universities, and you're just blown away. And at the project was to suggest something that has a micro and macro scale impact on a space. So design something that can scale. So it can be small, it can be big, it can be small, it can be big. We were going through a water crisis at the time, so we designed a water tower that used some Indian technology that we found in some books in the library, where it's a water tower, but the ground is paved in such a way that when it does rain, it captures a lot of the water and injects it back into the ground. So we were just thinking that we'll end up like Cape Town, and everyone has to go with a jerry can to this one place. And the thing I think that made the idea very winning is that we said that water was something that was a point of segregation back in the past, where you've had the white tap and the black tap. So we thought we'll have this one bug-like looking water tower that has these small sheltered spaces, so you can go charge your phone there, there's Wi-Fi there, and there's water there. And everyone would come there. Someone from the informal settlement, there's a water tower there. It looks exactly the same as the water tower in Eros and everywhere else. So we're just thinking it might be cool. And then when it's off season and we're not using them because the drought has sort of settled, they work as these mechanisms that put water back into the aquifer, because that's where most of our groundwater is.
Oh, wow.
And we stand in this hall, and they read out our names, but they read them completely wrong.
So you didn't even recognize her.
I'm like,
So you're probably waiting.
She's like, I'm clapping for someone else.
Yeah, and totally probably waiting, like, where
waiting for them
people?
to walk up. And the colleagues we went with were like, guys, it's you, go. So it was quite lovely. Yeah.
But what did it
And
mean
it's
to
you
you?
and... sorry, we have to say, because you said we, right?
Yeah,
so you and...
Allow Martin. Yeah.
Okay.
So what did that win mean to you when you got back and you realized, oh my gosh?
On the
just won.
stage, it meant I got $21,000 or was
Let's
it
get it.
$25,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a cash prize. That was all that was on my mind at the time. I couldn't fathom how much I was going to lose if missed the prize, but that was the plan. So we got back, and everyone was so excited. And for me, it was more just a sign that the effort you put in does most times match how much comes out. I was so focused on going to South Africa that I broke my back. Like I put in, we put in so much effort, and there was just an incentive, and we're like, and I just saw myself on a plane, and then we ended up going by bus.
But you were still on your way.
I was still on my way to South Africa. Yeah. So the effort you put in does reflect the outcome most of the time. So that was I think that's where I learned that if you put in the effort, the results they come. Yeah. That was my takeaway.
All right. Now, if you could motivate somebody out there today, who feels like, I'm tired. The studies are not working out. They've just done what they could, and now they feel like, I need to throw in the towel. What would you say to them to get them back up on their feet and get them gearing forward again?
When I was just coming from school and I was sort of looking for work, I worked with a lot of vision boards.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, where do I want to go and how do I get there? And I would say to someone, it takes a lot of time. So draw yourself up a vision board, but accommodate the fact that everything takes time. It takes time to really learn and hone your skill. A lot of students think that you go to uni, you graduate, and now you have a skill to sell. You don't. It would take you about 4 years learning how to use the skills you got at university before you can confidently make income from them. So I would say make a vision board, see where you want to be in the next 5 years, and then work backwards and accommodate time. So maybe your 5-year plan is actually a 10-year plan, and you're stressed because you're trying to do 10 years in 2. So
a crash course on life, and
so it takes time. It takes time to, and age is a beautiful thing. I think I've been one of those people who has enjoyed aging, because
You haven't aged a day,
Exactly,
but
I'm also
okay,
like,
flex
yeah, I'm
on
like,
us.
what is she talking about?
No, I just mean that, okay, I turned 30 this year, and that's like the crossover, right?
And
From
look at
20s
everything
to 30s.
that you've already achieved at 30.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
But I would say that every year I tried to push myself to learn something or to grow.
Yeah.
Not just in work, I mean also at home, how you speak to people, how you control your temper.
Yes.
And I'm just saying that you need to give yourself time, and you need to give yourself a push to say, just one step a day.
Yeah.
And it's a
One
10-year
foot in
plan.
front
It's
of the
not
other.
it's not a 2-year plan. It's not a 3-year plan. It's a 10-year plan.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right, you heard it right here from Miss Iita. Take your time. Don't crash it. Don't shorten it just because you have a goal set in mind. Take your time, and eventually you'll get there. But again, thank you so much for joining Unda and Kuda right here on NUST FM, and most especially on Research Matters. And of course, that brings us to the end of this amazing episode. But for more details on the next episode of Research Matters with Unda and Kuda, actually, I should be asking, I don't know if we should let our listeners know that Miss Kuda has elevated in life.
Oh my God.
And we're not sure
The focus
if
is not
it
on
will
me.
be
The
Unda
focus is
and
on our
Kuda.
guest.
I'm sorry. We'll give you the tea next time on our next episode. But of course, follow the Research, Innovation and Partnerships at NUST pages on Facebook and LinkedIn, as well as the NUST FM page that is on Facebook and Instagram. But don't forget, our podcasts are available on our YouTube channel. So head over there and catch up on all the episodes that you might have missed.